Okay, and we're back. Sorry about that. Only lets me record about an hour before I have to start over again. But I had just gotten to the section on demons and covered the fact that demons and devils are sort of... The entries on demons and devils also kind of cover their realms and various things about them. For the demons, it covers the demon lords. Specifically, it mentions Baphomet, Demogorgon, Grozd, Juiblex, Lolth, Orcus, and Yenogu, as well as a small little section here on other demon lords. And basically, it doesn't provide stats on them or anything. It just gives you 2 paragraphs or so on each creature, just sort of explaining anything that it feels might be appropriate about that particular demon lord. And as far as the demons themselves go, there are 14 different demons included in this entry. The Balor, the Barlgura, the Chasme, the Dretch, the Glabrezu, the Goristro, the Hezru, Manes, or Manes, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce any of this stuff really, so I'm just guessing. The Marilith, the Nalfeshni, the Quasit, the Shadow Demon, the Vrak, and the Yaklal. So they include a lot of that stuff, and it's all pretty much the standard creature that it's been before. None of it really seems to be changed any. Just going through all of this here. And then right after that we have the devils. And they cover the they cover information about the infernal hierarchy, the 9 hells, including sort of a breakdown of each layer. So each hell, essentially. And they cover the Archduke or Archduchess of each hell and basically who rules it, essentially. So that's some interesting stuff there. As far as the demons, devils would not like knowing that I called them demons, let me tell you. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11... 11 devils, so slightly fewer than the demons. But as far as the ones presented, we have the Barbed Devil, the Bearded Devil, or the Barbazu. The Barbed Devil is also known as the Hamatula, or the Hamatula. The Bone Devil, or the Ocelith. The Chain Devil, or Chiton. The Arrhenius, the Horned Devil, or the Malabranch, the Ice Devil, or Galugan, the Imp, the Lemure, or Lemur, or whatever, again, I don't know how they're supposed to be pronounced, I'm just guessing, the Pit Fiend, and the Spined Devil, or Spinagon. So a lot of variety there, although not quite as much as with the demons. But in general, they seem to do a pretty good job of covering the challenge spread with both of them. because as far as the devils are concerned, I almost called them demons again. As far as the devils are concerned, their challenge ratings range from 0 with the Lemure to 20 with the Pit Fiend. And I believe the demons follow a pretty similar structure. Let me find a demon with a challenge rating of 0 here. Okay, so they don't quite have one that's rated as 0, but the Mones are rated at 1/8, which is just above 0. It doesn't go any lower than that, except to 0. And then they have the Baylor, which is the most powerful demon, rated at 19. And then you have dinosaurs, and they cover the basics there. They cover 6 dinosaurs: the Allosaurus, or T-Rex Lite, as you might want to call it, the Ankylosaurus, the Plesiosaurus, the Triceratops, the Pteranodon, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm a little surprised they didn't include the Deinonychus or the Velociraptor. Deinonychus would be the essentially movie version of it, the Jurassic Park version of the Velociraptor, because the Velociraptor, if you don't know, is actually very small. Not this small. It's about dog-sized or something like that, but it's not the 8-foot tall crazy thing it was in the movies. I guess the Allosaurus is supposed to be the stand-in there, but an Allosaurus is still too big. Anyway, I'm sure you could scale down an Allosaurus if you really wanted Velociraptors or Deinonychi. And you got Displacer Beasts, Doppelgangers, Dracoliches. Okay, we're getting into the dragons here. Do Dracoliches have legendary actions? No. Okay, Dracolich is a template. The way that templates work are they introduce that it is a template in the entry. Like they'll have a specific category that says it'll have the name of whatever the creature is and then template. And it'll tell you what kind of creatures this template can be assigned to. And then it tells you what parts of the creature change if you apply this template. In the case of the Dracolich, the type changes from dragon to undead, and the creature no longer requires air, food, drink, or sleep. The creature gains resistance to necrotic damage. It gains immunity to poison and retains any previous immunities. It can't be charmed, frightened, paralyzed, or poisoned, and does not suffer from exhaustion. And it has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. I don't believe it says anything about challenge rating changes. So the templates are kind of... there's almost an arbitrary nature to them, in the sense that they don't really seem to spell out in every case, or in any of the cases with the templates, how much you change the difficulty of the creature by applying the template. The only way I've really found to do it is just to compare the challenge of the creature to the challenge of the creature it's based on. Because they provide an example entry of the template being applied to a creature in every case. In this case, they've applied it to an adult blue dragon. So why don't we go ahead and find the entry for an adult blue dragon here, and see if we can figure out what the challenge difference is. That's a green. There's the blue. Okay. Adult blue dragon has a challenge of 16. Adult blue Dracolich has a challenge of 17. So it seems to increase the challenge by 1. Although I don't know why they don't just spell that out. Maybe it's variable. Maybe they'll spell that out in the Dungeon Master's Guide once that comes out. I don't know. Anyway, dragons. The poster monsters, as you might say. And of course, they have 10 varieties. They have 5 chromatic, 5 metallic. I covered that a little bit ago. And they have 4 age categories this time. They have the Wormling, which is medium-sized, and that's a dragon of 5 years or less in age. They have the Young Dragon, which is large-sized, and that ranges anywhere from 6 to 100 years old. Ooh. They have the Adult, which is huge-sized and ranges from 100 to 800 years old. And then they have the Ancient Dragon, which is gargantuan and is 800 years plus in age. These dragons are not treated as innate spellcasters as they might have been in Pathfinder or 3.5, but they do provide variant rules allowing you to do that. And basically, let's see. Does it tell you what spell list you use? A young or older dragon can innately cast a number of spells equal to its charisma modifier. Each spell can be cast once per day, requiring no material components in the spell's level. Can be no higher than 1/3 the dragon's challenge rating rounded down. Dragon's bonus to hit with spell attacks. Okay, so it doesn't say anything about spell list they have to use. Ordinarily, I would think it would be Sorcerer, because that's typically the spell list associated with a dragon. But I suppose they can choose anything they want in that case. They can take cleric spells if they want and start healing themselves all day. That would be interesting. Anyway, I believe they all more or less have the same legendary actions. Let me just make sure. Yeah. They all have more or less the same legendary actions. And they can take 3 around, just like the others. They have Detect, which is the same thing that the Aboleth had. They get to make a perception check. They can make a tail attack. Or, for 2 actions, they can make a wing attack. And they beat their wings. Creature within 15 feet of the dragon must succeed on a DC 24. Now that's for the Ancient Blue Dragon, so it's not going to be quite as difficult for the others. Like the Adult is DC 20, for instance. And only an Adult or an Ancient Dragon get legendary actions and lair actions. Young and Wormlings don't, so you don't have to worry about those being quite as nasty. Seems like they don't really give those to anything that doesn't have a challenge of at least 10. Because I don't believe I've seen anything that has a challenge below 10 that gets these special actions. Now that I think about it, I don't know if the Pit Fiends or the Balors got anything like this either. I'll have to take a look at that. But as far as the wing attack goes, must succeed on a DC 24 dexterity saving throw or take 16, or 2d6 plus 9. Bludgeoning damage and be knocked prone. The dragon can then fly up to half its flying speed. So it's basically a takeoff attack, is what it is. Alright, I want to go back and see if the Balors or Pit Fiends got anything like that I didn't cover. No. Doesn't look like it. Okay, they just get natural abilities that they have. Alright. So, each variety of dragon has a number of lair actions, and depending on what kind of dragon you're dealing with, that kind of determines what they get. Black dragons, for instance, have 3 different lair actions that they, again, of course, use on initiative count 20. Number 1, pools of water that the dragon can see within 120 feet of its surge outward in a grasping tide. That's the same ability that the Aboleth had. A cloud of swarming insects fills a 20-foot radius sphere. This is number 2. Centered on a point the dragon chooses within 120 feet of it. The cloud spreads around corners and remains until the dragon dismisses it as an action, uses a Slayer action again, or dies. Cloud is lightly obscured. Any creature in the cloud when it appears must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw taken 10 or 3d6. Piercing damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. A creature that ends its turn in the cloud takes 10 or 3d6 piercing damage. So basically a cloud of wasps. And finally, magical darkness spreads from a point the dragon chooses within 60 feet of it, filling a 15-foot radius sphere until the dragon dismisses it as an action, uses a Slayer action again, or dies. The darkness spreads around corners. A creature with dark vision can't see through this darkness, and non-magical light can't illuminate it. If any of the effects area overlaps with an area of light created by a spell of 2nd level or lower, the spell that created the light is dispelled. Regional effects that this creature has. The land within 6 miles of the lair takes twice as long as normal to traverse since the plants grow thick and twisted, and the swamps are thick with reeking mud. Water sources within 1 mile of the lair are supernaturally fouled. Enemies of the dragon that drink such water regurgitate it within minutes. And fog lightly obscures the land within 6 miles of the lair. Really, the dragons have the coolest regional effects because in every case, the dragon's environment around it is completely changed. Like, for instance, the blue dragon, which arguably has some of the coolest of these. Thunderstorms rage within 6 miles of the lair. Or I'm talking about the regional effects specifically. I might have said lair effects, which are actually lair actions. I've been kind of misnaming them. But I am talking about regional effects when it comes to the dragons. These are the really cool things. And I think the dragons put them to the best use. But blue dragons have thunderstorms raging within 6 miles of their lair. Dust devils scour the land within 6 miles of the lair. A dust devil has the statistics of an air elemental, but can't fly, has a speed of 50 feet, and an intelligence and charisma of 1. And this might be the most dangerous one. Hidden sinkholes form in and around the dragon's lair. A sinkhole can be spotted from a safe distance with a successful DC 20 Wisdom Perception check. Otherwise, the first creature to step on the thin crust covering the sinkhole must succeed on a DC 15 Dexterity saving throw or fall 1d6 times 10 feet into the sinkhole. So that's pretty nasty. And those sinkholes don't go away when the dragon dies. It says specifically in the entry they remain. As far as green dragons go, they get thickets form labyrinthine passages within 1 mile of the dragon's lair. Thickets act as 10-foot high, 10-foot thick walls that block line of sight. Creatures can move through the thickets with every 1 foot a creature moves, costing it 4 feet of movement. A creature in the thickets must make a DC 15 dexterity saving throw once each round it's in contact with the thickets, or take 3 or 1d6 piercing damage from thorns. Each 10-foot cube of thickets has AC 5, 30 hit points, resistance to bludgeoning and piercing damage, vulnerability to fire damage, and immunity to psychic and thunder damage. Within 1 mile of its lair, the dragon leaves no physical evidence of its passage unless it wishes to. Tracking it there is impossible except by magical means. In addition, it ignores movement, impediments, and damage from plants in this area that are neither magical nor creatures, including the thickets described above. The plants remove themselves from the dragon's path. And rodents and birds within 1 mile of the dragon's lair serve as the dragon's eyes and ears. Deer and other large game are strangely absent, hinting at the presence of an unnaturally hungry predator. And we have red dragons, who might have some of the coolest as well. The blue and red dragons are particularly well done, I think. Which makes sense because they're the strongest dragons. But red dragon, regional effects. Small earthquakes are common within 6 miles of the dragon's lair. Water sources within 1 mile of the lair are supernaturally warm and tainted by sulfur. And rocky fissures within 1 mile of the dragon's lair form portals to the elemental plane of fire, allowing creatures of elemental fire into the world to dwell nearby. Pretty nasty. And then finally we have the white dragon. Regional effects. Chilly fog lightly obscures the land within 6 miles of the dragon's lair. Freezing precipitation falls within 6 miles of the dragon's lair, sometimes forming blizzard conditions when the dragon is at rest. And icy walls block off areas in the dragon's lair. Each wall is 6 inches thick, and a 10-foot section has AC 5, 15 hit points, vulnerability to fire damage, and immunity to acid, cold, necrotic, poison, and psychic damage. If the dragon wishes to move through a wall, it can do so without slowing down. The portion of the wall the dragon moves through is destroyed, however. And then you have the metallic dragons. I'm not going to go through all of their effects, but suffice it to say, where the chromatic dragons have really damaging and negative effects on the areas around them, the metallic dragons have very helpful effects. Like pretty much every dragon, the only real negative effects that the metallic dragons have on the areas around them involve keeping things away from their lair. Like, they have stuff that looks scary or serves as an impediment. They don't really have anything dangerous. And in some cases, such as, just to use an example here, the brass dragon, tracks appear in the sand within 6 miles of the dragon's lair. The tracks lead to safe shelters and hidden water sources, while also leading away from areas that the dragon prefers to remain undisturbed. So that's the kind of things that you get with the metallic dragon effects. They basically lead things... They basically, they try to keep people away from them, but at the same time, they're also very helpful. So, for the most part, none of the effects that they do are all that dangerous. Let's see if there's anything interesting here that I should take a look at. Okay, so that'll be pretty much it for the dragons here. Let me see if there's anything else that I should cover here before we go ahead and go on to final thoughts. We got the drow. Okay, so Empyreans are not always good. They have a 75% chance to be chaotic good and a 25% chance to be neutral evil. And it does, in fact, look like they are essentially Titans. Okay. And they do get legendary actions. Let's see here. No. Nothing of real consequence there. Stupid Gorgons. You're not a Gorgon, you're a bull made of stone that petrifies for some weird reason. Alright. Okay, here's the half-dragon template. That doesn't cover too much of any interest. Hobgoblins, Hydras, Lamias, the Werewolves, the Nagas, Rakshasa, Succubi and Incubi. Yep, inhabit all of the lower planes, so they are found all over the place. Should really look at his entry, shouldn't I? And here's the obligatory Tarrasque that always has to be in the monster manual. Because it's not really a monster manual if there's not a Tarrasque, right? That's the legendary badass creature. And it is acceptably badass. It has a challenge of 30. So it is the strongest creature in the book. Let's see. I'm trying to see how easy it is to kill. Oh, Thri-kreen. I'll look at that in a minute. Well, it doesn't seem that they have the resistance to being killed that they had in previous editions, so maybe they're a little easier to kill this time around. Thri-kreen. Okay, so yeah, it looks like Thri-kreen are indeed the only creature in here that is psionic. And that's not even included in the base rules, it's part of the variant. Troglodyte. Yuan-ti. Yugoloths. The zombies. One thing I should note, the art does seem pretty good on the whole. Seems to illustrate fairly effectively. There are some where I wasn't really wowed by the art, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, here's your zombies. The normal zombie's the one up top there. That middle zombie is an ogre zombie. And the bottom one is of course a beholder zombie. And then we get to the miscellaneous creatures, and that essentially covers pretty much anything that there's not much that needs to be explained about it. Includes statistics for various animals, vermin, and other critters. Most of them are animals. They do have some other things in here, like they have awakened shrubs and trees. They have blink dogs, which are actually fae. I'm just looking for things that are not beasts, mostly. Death dogs, treated as monstrosities. Those are all beasts. Giant varieties of beasts are fairly common. Giant eagle, which is unique because it is not unaligned, it is actually neutral good aligned. Giant octopus. And they just have a picture of a tentacle for that. For a minute I thought that meant they would have separate statistics for the tentacle. But it doesn't look like it. Alright. Yep, there's the spider. Giant vultures are neutral evil aligned, which is interesting. Let's see, anything else particularly unique? I know there's more. A phase spider, which is a monstrosity. And anything that isn't self-explanatory, they will include a small entry for. For instance, the phase spider. A phase spider possesses the magical ability to phase in and out of the ethereal plane. It seems to appear out of nowhere and quickly vanishes after attacking. Its movement on the ethereal plane before coming back to the material plane makes it seem like it can teleport. Okay. And they cover the various swarms of animals. They actually have quite a few swarms. They have bats, insects, poisonous snakes, quippers. Quippers are basically piranhas. Swarms of rats and swarms of ravens. And looks like we finish off with a couple of monstrosities here. The winter wolf, which is a neutral evil monstrosity. And the warg, which is also a neutral evil monstrosity. And wargs are basically friends to goblins. And then finally, we have a section on non-player characters. And what this basically is this is, it's almost sort of like simplified templates. In a way. Really a better way to explain it might be to say that the stuff included in non-player characters, you apply the races from the player's handbook to, specifically the traits that those races have, as templates to these. And they basically give you the base statistics of the NPC, and then you add in whatever you need to add in. Like, for instance, the Acolyte here, medium humanoid, any race, any alignment, and it gives you the basic things it can do, has basic spellcasting, basic attacks, gives you like a paragraph on what they are and how you can use that particular NPC. And essentially what you do from that point is you take a race and you apply whatever ability score bonuses or anything like that the race would have to the NPC. And then you go from there. And you can also switch out armor, weapons, whatever you want to do. It does not cover, and this is kind of one of the things that seems to make it to where you kind of need to wait for the Dungeon Master's Guide for this. It does not cover how changing gear might change the creature's challenge rating. It specifically mentions, in fact, for magic items or armor and weapon swaps. We'll do magic items. The more powerful an NPC, the more likely it has one or more magic items in its possession. An Archmage, for example, might have a magic staff or wand as well as one or more potions and scrolls. Giving an NPC a potent damage-dealing magic item could alter its challenge rating. Magic items, as well as adjusting a creature's challenge rating, are described in the Dungeon Master's Guide. But that's basically what this section covers, is NPCs. And it has quite a few of them here. Let's see how many pages it has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it has 9 pages. That's a decent amount, I think, for a starter. For a starter amount of NPCs that you can use, and you can basically just apply a race to them, and there you go. So, that's the whole book. They have an index in the back, and that's pretty much it. The index is like 1 page. You can go here. If you are looking for a specific monster, you look it up by name, and there you go. But that's the monster manual. As far as final thoughts go, I really like the inclusion of NPCs into the book. I think that is a great thing. It's something that, particularly in Pathfinder, if you wanted NPCs, you either had to build your own, which is very time-consuming, or you had to buy one of their NPC codexes, I think is what they were called. And you would basically pull one out of there, and then you could use it that way. Here they basically give you they give you pretty much everything. They give you ranging from like an archmage to like a bandit captain. They have gladiators, thugs, druids, pretty much any basic NPC you would need. You can either find it wholesale in there, or you can find something that you can combine and make whatever you need. So that is extremely useful. And when and if, at this point, I get to run a game in this system, I'm definitely going to be making use of that. That is extremely helpful. The other thing I really, really like are the changes they've made to the certain legendary monsters, where they give them legendary actions, and a lot of the monsters it isn't universal that all the creatures get lair actions. The Empyreans in particular, I was looking at their entry, they get legendary actions. They do not get lair actions or regional effects. So it's not universal that every creature gets all of these, but the legendary actions, the lair actions, and the regional effects, those are outstanding, and that is a change I really, really like. Just because it's really a good way to show the effects and the strength of a creature. Because if you can show your players, if they happen to be looking for this particular creature, that when they start getting close to it, like the land literally starts to change around them, I think that's a really good way of saying you're going into a place that you're not going to have a good time in. These things are scary. So that I really, really like. And there's also a whole lot of variety. In particular, they seem to have a whole bunch of coverage as far as creatures at the lower levels. One of the things I noticed about the early information in 4th edition, which was not a problem for me because by the time I got into the system, I think they had already released the 2nd monster manual and they were about halfway into the system's lifespan. So this wasn't a problem for me, but just looking through the 1st monster manual, I noticed this. They didn't seem to have a whole lot in the way of variety for the earlier levels in particular. Like, I noticed that early on it seemed like you had pretty much you were going to fight goblins or kobolds, and that was it. You didn't get to fight anything else unless somehow the DM managed to come up with like a group of animals that had turned bad, and that was your nemesis. But most of the time, you were either going to have to fight goblins or kobolds in some capacity. This book does seem to get around that pretty well, although, of course, goblins and kobolds are still a pretty universal threat at that level. They have a lot of creatures that are below challenge rating 1 that you can play with. Like the devils and demons, they have the Manes and the Lemures, so you can definitely use those. And they just generally seem to have a lot of variety. So I may not have been too super hot on the 5th edition Player's Handbook, because there were some aspects of it that I didn't think were that great. In particular, some of the... I guess the one thing I probably had the most problem with was that particular fighter archetype, the Eldritch Knight. Was not a fan of that at all. In general, I thought it was okay, but it was very simplified, and there were issues that I could see showing up with that simplification. This book, I think this is very, very well done. This is an amazing book. I love what they've done with a lot of the creatures in here, and if it were possible to incorporate any of this stuff into my Pathfinder campaign without too much work, I certainly would. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem terribly easy to do that, but fact remains that this is a very solid production right here. And I would definitely recommend this book if you are either a DM, an aspiring DM, or just somebody who likes to look at a lot of cool monsters. Although if you're the latter there, I hope you have a lot of disposable income, because these books do tend to run $40, $50. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking to purchase. But I think that pretty much covers it. Next thing I'll be talking about is the Dungeon Master's Guide when it comes out and I've managed to read it. But big recommendation for this. This is a very solid book. And with that, I think I will go ahead and wrap things up here, and I'll talk to you guys next time.